All right, let's jump right into a pivotal moment in India's history. We're going to unpack one single year, a year so explosive it completely changed the destiny of a nation. We're talking, of course, about the 1857 uprising, what many call India's first war of independence. You know, most years just kind of blend together, right? But some are absolute turning points. And 1857, that was one of them. This was the year that all the frustration, all the anger that had been simmering for so long against a foreign power finally just boiled over. And we're not talking about a small protest here. No way. This was a full-on firestorm. It was this collective explosion of pain, of humiliation, and this deep, undeniable desire for freedom that had been building up for decades under British rule. So a fire that big, where does it even begin? Well, it always starts with a single spark. So in this first part, let's look at all the dry tinder, all the discontent that was just lying around, waiting for something to set it all off. For years, you had the East India Company just squeezing tighter and tighter. Imagine being a king and losing your kingdom, or a farmer getting crushed by impossible taxes, or a soldier feeling like everything you believe in is being openly disrespected. This wasn't just one group of people being angry, it was everybody. The anger was just bubbling right under the surface. And then you get the spark, the thing that finally lit the fuse. It was a new weapon, the Enfield rifle. Now to use it, the soldiers, the sepoys, had to bite open the paper cartridges. Simple enough, right? Wrong. The rumors started spreading that these cartridges were greased with cow and pig fat. For Hindu and Muslim soldiers, that was a massive, unthinkable insult. It was, without a doubt, the final straw. Okay, so this spark is lit. And that fire, it didn't just smolder, it exploded. It spread like, well, wildfire. Let's track how this one moment of defiance blew up into a massive, widespread rebellion. And just look how fast this all happened. It starts with one man, Mangal Pandey, at the end of March. Just a few weeks later, by early May, the entire army post in Meerut is in open revolt. And I mean full-on revolt. They're busting people out of jail, they're attacking their British officers, and by the very next morning, they're marching on Delhi. The whole thing just snowballed. This just goes to show you the power of one person, one single act of defiance. Mangal Pandey's actions weren't just some random event. It was like a signal flare shot into the sky. It told thousands of others, now is the time. He instantly became a martyr and a huge inspiration for the cause. Okay, so you've got this growing rebel army, but every movement needs a leader, right? A rallying point. And that's where the ancient city of Delhi comes into play. It became the absolute heart of the entire revolution. What the rebels did next was honestly pretty brilliant. They march into Delhi and they declare the old Mughal emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar, as their leader. This was a genius move. It gave them a unifying symbol, it gave them legitimacy. Even though the emperor himself was a bit reluctant, his acceptance turned this from just a soldier's mutiny into a full-blown war for national restoration. But Delhi was just the start. It was the epicenter of the earthquake. The shockwaves shot out all across northern India. Places like Kanpur, Jhansi, and Lucknow all erupted into major battlegrounds. Each city had its own local heroes, its own desperate fight. And you absolutely cannot talk about 1857 without talking about the incredible Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi. I mean, wow, she wasn't just a queen sitting in a palace, she was a warrior. She literally got on her horse and led her troops into battle herself. She became this legendary icon of courage, a story that's still told to this day. But let's be real, these rebels were going up against the most powerful empire on the planet, and the British were not just going to let this happen. Their counterattack was coming, and it was going to be organized, it was going to be powerful, and it was going to be absolutely ruthless. And this is really where you see the core problem. On one side, you've got the rebels. They have all the passion, all the courage in the world, but they're not really organized. There's no single person in charge. On the other side, the British Army. They're like a machine, well-equipped, highly organized, and all working together. And that difference? Well, it was everything. The British counterattack wasn't just about winning battles. It was about sending a terrifying message. They wanted to crush the very spirit of the rebellion. So what they did was just brutal. They burned entire villages to the ground. Thousands of people were rounded up and hanged. often without a trial. It was a campaign of sheer terror. The beginning of the end really came in September 1857. The British managed to retake Delhi, and once that happened, the rebellion lost its heart, its center. They captured the emperor, Bahadur Shah Zafar, and sent him into exile. That wasn't just about arresting one man, it was about destroying the symbol of the entire uprising. It was effectively over. So, that's it then. The rebellion is crushed. Game over. But did it really fail? That's the big question, isn't it? Let's look at the real, lasting legacy of 1857. Because it wasn't about winning a war, it was about lighting a flame that, as it turns out, could never be put out. So, the fighting stops, the British are back in control, and the changes are huge. They get rid of the East India Company completely. From now on, India is ruled directly by the British Crown, a massive political shift. But even with all that, the memory of 1857, that echo, it just stuck around. It never really went away. And this right here is the most important takeaway. You can draw a straight line from the fire of 1857 all the way to independence in 1947. Sure, it took another 90 years of hard struggle, but the idea, the powerful idea, that India could be free, that it should be free, that was planted in 1857. It was the seed from which everything else grew. So, in the end, yeah, if you look at it as just a military campaign, it failed. They lost. But in a much bigger, much more profound way, it succeeded. It took all these separate grievances and fused them together into one shared national idea. It lit that flame of freedom, and once it was lit, it just couldn't be extinguished. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Is it really fair to call 1857 just a war or a mutiny? Or was it something more? Was this the first time that the soul of India cried out as one, demanding not just different rulers, but demanding respect, dignity, and the fundamental right to be its own country? That's a question worth pondering.